Greetings from Mobility Outlook and welcome to Mobility Conversations. Today, for our show, we have with us Mr. Pawan Kumar Singh, who is the Executive Director and Country Business Leader for Transportation and Electronics Business Group of 3M. Pawan, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Murli. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for spending your time. We cover airlines, auto, aviation, and railways. So it was very interesting when the idea came for an interaction. Thanks so much. So under Transportation and Electronics Business Group, what are the how 3M supports all forms of mobility, including air, water, and land, and what are the emerging trends in these forms of mobility?
So Murli, as far as we are concerned here at 3M, when we say transportation and electronics, there are two pieces which are actually covered under transportation. If I actually can be direct, the first one is basically the automobile business, where we actually supply the raw material to the auto OEMs in India, who are actually making new vehicles. And that is something which is actually across the domain. If you see from the Suzuki to Tata Motors to Mahindra of the world, they for every vehicle, there is some component from 3M which is actually used. And that is something which is actually going to be solving their problems when they actually roll out their vehicles on Indian roads. So that is one piece. The second is actually, which is probably going to be more interesting to you in terms of the highways piece, right? So the highway safety, the road safety is something which is actually very, very close to our heart. And that is what we, not only in terms of the product supply, but also in terms of working with the government, working with all the stakeholders to improving the road safety on Indian roads. That is something which is another passion with which we work on Indian scenario, Murli.
Okay, so what kind of unique solutions that 3M can offer for these kinds of challenges faced by the vehicle manufacturers, the government, and all other stakeholders?
So, in terms of as far as I'll take it in two parts, Murli. If you talk about the highway side of it, you have the huge challenge in front of the government and the society in general. Which is the number of deaths which is actually happening on Indian roads. The fatalities on Indian roads is something which is enormous. 150,000 people dying on Indian roads every year, right? So if 500,000 people actually died in Corona, the country got shut down for 4 or 5 months. But here 150,000 people are dying every year, and we can say that unfortunately, in spite of the effort from everybody, the trend is actually not coming down. So that's a huge piece, and that is where 3M as an organization, as I told earlier, we are not only customizing our offerings to make sure that things improve in terms of safety on Indian roads, but we also work with the stakeholders, including the Government of India, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, National Highway Authority, the state governments to actually offer the experience which we bring from more than 200 countries that we actually work in, right? That what is actually happening there, and whether some of those things can actually be replicated on Indian roads. So that is a larger piece of us, our work in India, Murli.
Okay. If you can throw a little more light on the solutions, the particular solutions that you cater to.
Yeah. So if you if you talk about the solutions, and 3M is a very innovative company, more than 60,000 products and all that. So I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties and details, but to keep it simpler for the audience, one of the major requirement as far as the road user is concerned, if I can again keep it very general, is that the road has to be visible day and night for them to navigate safely, right? And that is something which, during the daytime when you're actually driving, then you have got the cues when you want to divert at a very, very dangerous point and things like that. You can actually see it clearly and you can navigate through that. Okay. But as soon as the situation becomes dark, you don't have any cues. So at that point of time, anything reflective only is actually is there for you to guide, right? So whether it is the signages, the road marking, the road furnitures, any vehicle which is actually comes with the, you would have seen that the heavy vehicles which comes with the conspicuity tape, where the 2-inch tape is there all along the periphery of the vehicles. So all those are the solutions which actually come from 3M stable, which can actually create a safer environment on Indian roads. And that is what we actually work with the government, Murli.
Okay, so I just reminded of visiting RTO very recently, and some of the vehicles, especially trucks that have come for that. What is it? Annual
fitness certificate. Yeah,
fitness certificate. And I saw at least half a dozen vendors with a briefcase, and I think they have a local tapes. So that is being put on the vehicle for the vehicles to get the certification. It's just so the question here is, there are a lot of spurious parts coming into this mark. How do you prevent that?
Probably a right question to a wrong person. That as a manufacturer, we cannot actually control the spurious goods. We can only go and cry in front of the government authorities that it is happening and it is actually compromising the safety on Indian roads, right? We are doing that. We are trying to educate the not only the RTOs but all the stakeholders, which is basically the state governments and the the local transport commissioners in 29 states in this country and the government of India. But what you said, what you actually bring about here, Murli, is a very, very important and pertinent point. That unfortunately the qualification in terms of the Indian standards is that once the tape is actually approved by one of the 12 agencies which are there across India, after that what is actually going to be put on the individual vehicles is anybody's guess. And just because, and ultimately it is actually the decision is being made by the last mile is actually the driver, right? Who is actually who has to put the money from his pocket, which has been given by his owner or whatever. But then if he sees that probably he is actually going to be saving 500 rupees on a little lower quality tape, 9 out of 10 times it doesn't bother, right? To communicate that safety piece to him and sensitize him is little difficult, because it's a millions and millions of drivers which are there all across India. So that is where the role of the local authorities comes into the picture, where they have to have a system which makes sure that the tape which is being applied on the individual vehicle is coming from the authorized OEMs like 3M, and it is. And anything, if they are actually losing their sheen before the referred or the required guarantee period or warranty period, it becomes their responsibility. So now various states, as a case in point, you take the state of Maharashtra, state of Tamil Nadu, they have gone for a QR code. So the QR code with every installation has to be part of that installation. And if you can you scan that QR code with your mobile phone, you will immediately know that it actually comes from 3M, it actually comes from that distributor, that dealer, which date it has been installed, and the details of the vehicle also, that the chassis number, the engine number. So that becomes an additional kind of deterrent for people not to use the spurious material. But I think we have a long way to go as a country, Murli, but I think we are doing our bit in that area as well.
Now let me ask you a little bit about the new products that you are planning to launch in this segment. There is a transportation and the electronics business.
Yeah. So in terms of, sticking to the road safety business, because that is what we were discussing, Murli, and not to kind of spread all over the place. In this, we have seen that India being India, price sensitive country, we have seen that if you actually drive on the road, one of the product which has actually has not been performing to the expectations of the authorities as well as the road user is the road marking. Yeah. If you see the thermoplastic road marking or the white marking that you see on the road, generally that is the in a very, very layman terms, it has to be visible day and night in the wet condition, during the rain, and all the time. And that sometimes that becomes the savior, right? When you are, I don't know, you have done that or not, but in the North India during the foggy condition, if you drive on the highways, that is the only piece through which you can actually navigate, because the visibility is as low as 3, 4, 5 meter, or sometimes even lesser, right? But the quality of those markings are so bad in India that you apply them today during the daytime. Of course, it is going to be visible because there is a light. But as soon as the there is, and generally on the highway outside the urban conditions, you don't have the lights also. So it has to be actually reflecting back only through the headlight of the vehicle. And in that condition, it is not visible. So we are trying to get product which is of course going to be a little costlier, but it is going to be much more better performing, which is going to be actually performing throughout the life. Maybe if we give the warranty for 2 years, on any day within those 2 years, you can come and check it, that the minimum amount of reflectivity which is required for a normal human eye to see that is actually available there. So that is something which is going to be one offering for us. We are actually doing the trial all across country, and hopefully in few months we will see that commercial application on some of the Indian roads.
Yeah, certainly. I think this will help navigate difficult situations, and also I think with a lot of vehicle manufacturers coming with ADAS, the lane departure system, etc., etc. Yeah, so that will help. How will you create a compelling reason for the government and the contractors to use these kinds of paints that will be, I'm sure, will be a bit expensive?
Not a very difficult question for me. Of course, it's a difficult question for the government and the contractors, as you rightly said. So I don't know, how do you value the life in this country, right? If you can actually put an amount in front of somebody who's dying, and you go and ask this question to the family of that, the sole breadwinner of that family has actually died in a road accident, then there is no value which is going to be attached to the road safety. Unfortunately, the people who are actually making the decisions, they are not looking at that piece. They are only looking at the bill of quantity of that road, and I have to actually construct this 5,000 crore road, but when it comes to the safety, I am not willing to spend 5 crore. That's the situation in this country, and that mindset has to change, right? So if you start, unfortunately, in our country, probably, and I'll be a little controversial here when I say that the value of life is little less than than in the West or the some other countries. But that's unfortunately is the fact. While the condition here is totally different, where most of the people who are dying, 60-70% of the people are actually in the earning age of if you take that 20 years to 60 years of the age group, 60% of those people are dying. And the clear difference between India and US or Europe is that there almost everybody in the family, at least husband and wife both are working, right? In case of India, 9 out of 10 times that guy will be the sole earning member. If he dies, the family dies, right? The kids die, right? Because they will not be able to study. That lady is going to struggle for the rest of her life, right? So all those social conditions are there. Unfortunately, when we go talk to the government, another problem is that they always see that the private people are there, are going to be there meeting them just to sell their products, right? It is, but unfortunately, we are, I'm there in the field for the last 27 years. We have seen all that product selling for 3M is only the byproduct of this whole thing, right? We sell our products, we are selling all across the globe, and a few million here and there is not going to be making a lot of difference to us. But the larger picture needs to be seen by everybody. So that is something which is actually important. But the people like you and me probably can sensitize the all the stakeholders, including the government, on this piece, Murli.
Yeah, I understand. Now let me come to the surface protection and the sealants and acoustics that are gaining prominence with vehicles becoming very silent. I would like to throw a little more light on those.
Yeah, so there again, as you rightly said, all the vehicle manufacturers who are actually who are feeling that is something, this piece is actually important for them. 3M is working very, very closely with them from the word go in terms of the new launches of their new models, right? Which is actually happening, and we have actually worked. If you as a case in point, the XUV 700 from Mahindra, and the various models which are actually coming from the Tata stable. And they are actually model after model, they are actually opting for 3M because the performance in terms of the actual noise reduction inside the cabin has been phenomenal. And that is so one piece is of course the noise reduction. The second is because the internal combustion engine is still something which is actually going to be there for some years at least. Everything is not going to be EV. So there the importance of the right sealant, the importance of the right material which is actually going to be used in for the various applications inside the engine, so that the noise actually can be reduced from that part. More often than not, most of the Indian manufacturers, they actually rely on 3M. They come to us and we work with them for years and years together before that particular model is launched. So we are partner. We are not only the product supplier, but we are partner through that journey. And then ultimately, when that product actually comes and hits the road, the right products as per the vision of the manufacturer, we are able to actually get that translated on the ground, Murli.
Yeah, from NVS now let's move on to the light weighting. I think that's another initiative. I'm sure you will be working with a lot of OEMs to reduce the weight of the vehicle, to enhance the performance, etc., etc. If you can throw a little more light on the latest solutions that you offer.
Yeah, so that's again we are the global leaders as far as that particular piece is concerned. Lightweighting is something which is not going to be probably it's not going to be luxury. It is going to be a requirement in in the era of EV when it you have to have the when you per charging you want to increase the mileage and things like that. The weight of the vehicle has to actually get reduced. But unfortunately, again, because of the cost, we have got a very, very innovative solutions which are actually the glass bubbles. And those glass bubbles needs to be actually used in the construction of the vehicle, which actually reduces the weight of the vehicle without compromising on the strength, right? And that is something which is, if you go to the Japan, you go to the Korea, all the leading manufacturers use it, almost for all their vehicle pieces. But in India, while I would, because of the, our agreement with the manufacturers, I cannot name them, but we are actually working with some of the OEMs, but still, again, something very typical to India, where probably the cost takes the front seat, and the overall benefits actually come secondary. So we still don't have any commercial order on us. But in terms of the global references, we have got many global references where people are actually using in day in and day out to reduce the overall weight of the vehicle, Murli.
Okay. So the next one, I think all the vehicle manufacturers are working on is to make everything sustainable. Be it, see, for example, if there is a glue and there are some volatile compounds in it, they are trying to minimize that so that the impact on the environment is reduced. So how do you support them?
Yeah, so again, I'll take one example, which is probably going to be a little more, easier for the audience to understand. If you look, one of the coming era is going to be of EVs, right? And the critical piece of that EV is going to be the batteries, right? And those batteries, the 3M is actually engaged into with all the major OEMs, not only the vehicle manufacturers, but even the battery manufacturers, when we actually supply the various components, in terms of sealants, in terms of adhesives, in terms of many other things. But another piece where we are working with the many OEMs is the coolant for those batteries, because you would have seen that in case of India, you would have seen that many batteries are actually catching fire, right? And that is something which is actually incidents we have seen with the two-wheelers and few other vehicles. These coolants are basically the very, very innovative Novec 1230 from our EMSD portfolio, which is actually they say that it is when it evaporates into the atmosphere, it gets dissolved in 3 to 4 hours time. while the competition material, similar material of the competition would take 3,000 years.
Okay. Wow.
So that's the difference, right? Unfortunately in India, because the standards are so low that people are actually get away with any kind of thing. And those are the products which are actually used even for the fire suppression in the critical installations like data centers and all that.
Okay.
But there also we are facing the similar problem that while many of the countries have completely banned the other pieces, which are basically the SF6 gases and things like that. But in India, because they are the cheaper options, people are still using that. But I'm sure that we are also, as a country, we are graduating. There is a lot of emphasis and commitment from the government of India. Prime Minister himself, the last Glasgow summit, they have signed on the piece of paper where they are going to be completely carbon neutral or net zero by 2070. I am sure that we are actually moving in the right direction, and it's just the matter of time that we start using those products, Murali.
Okay. Pawan, let me just move from OEMs, your OEMs or your customers, to your suppliers. How are you making your suppliers, can be tier 2, tier 3, or even the raw material supplier? How are you making that value chain green?
Yeah, so very, very good question, Murali. And when we are talking about this whole piece of net zero, until unless we actually work with our suppliers, that whole piece is because ultimately the raw material is actually being supplied by those people, and they are not actually working enough. On that piece, we will not be able to accomplish that vision of being net zero over a period of time. Okay. So we are working very, very closely with all our suppliers, Murali. We are so like as a case in point. Again, we cannot discuss each and everything, but as a case in point, we use a lot of plastics, right? So we use plastic for our road safety material. We use a lot of plastics from many OEMs. Now we have actually we have started. Of course we cannot compromise in terms of quality, but we have actually started looking at the usage of certain things which is actually recyclable, right? And so that our technical team, the marketing team, which is 3M technical and marketing team, is actually working with their technical team, the supplier's technical team, to qualify some of those materials. Okay. Right, and that is something which is, as we speak, those trials are actually happening, not only to make products, but to put them on the road and to check their efficacy in terms of Indian condition, and see that whether they are actually performing in Indian conditions or not. So it is happening, and this is something which I gave you an example, but it is happening in almost all the areas.
Okay, so yeah, it is interesting to know. I think the tire makers are using PET bottles, recycled PET bottles as one of the raw materials for them. So for you, I think it makes sense to look at the sustainable raw materials.
Right.
Lastly, how do you see the next 5 years for 3M and the related industry?
Murali, I think I personally see that at least the business that I handle is something which is actually the infrastructure facing business, including the vehicle, as well as we have another piece which is the electronics business, which is which is to do with the electronics manufacturing. All those things are actually, they have a very, very bright future in India, in this country, right? In terms of the road construction, in terms of construction in general, in terms of the mobile handheld manufacturing, in terms of data centers, in terms of vehicle manufacturing, all those pieces are actually going to be only, it doesn't take any rocket science for us to understand that all those pieces are going to grow in India. So if they grow, naturally the business for 3M grows, our size grows, and then of course our responsibility towards this country also grows in the process. So we are very sensitized to that fact, Murali. We are not only working in terms of augmenting our strength in some of these areas, but also looking at the possibility of partnering with the government and the other stakeholders to make sure that we are contributing to this country in general to take it forward, which is the vision of the government of India and the Prime Minister.
Great, Pawan. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. Thank you for taking time to participate in mobility conversations. Thank you.
Thanks, Murli. Thank you so much for having me.